Thank you, nice lady.
All right.
We are live.
Are we?
Shows it up there in the upper left-hand corner.
Yeah, I know I'm waiting for the notification to come through on YouTube here.
Says meeting is now streaming live on YouTube.
See,
I'm not seeing it on my end just yet. There we go. All right, here we go. All right, there we are. We've got a couple people just come in right now. All right, so this is the first Survival Dispatch news live broadcast in almost 2 years. Mike, let's start with you. What's going on with our cell phone networks?
Well, it looks an awful lot like a solid cyber attack hit everything. There's been a couple of Congress critters out there screaming that the sky is falling and obviously the sun did it. Sun didn't do it. Not this time, kids. No, this is outright a cyber attack. It doesn't attack just cellular networks.
So why do you say it's not a CME?
Well, again, it only attacked the cellular networks. We haven't seen any problems with satellite-based communication. We checked that earlier, and Starlink is running just fine. I haven't seen anything on Inmarsat or anything like that. So, yeah, all those seem to be working just fine. We haven't seen anything else. None of the grid was compromised or anything like that. Only cell phones.
Okay.
Why would only cell phone networks be hit?
So process of elimination. It's not an EMP. It's not a CME or a solar flare. And we have some information that it is a cyber attack, but just preliminary information that's not been 100% solidified, but through process of elimination, that looks like what it is. So, Jeff, considering your background working covertly for many years, why would somebody launch this type of cyber attack against us?
yeah, there could be a number of reasons. One, the most obvious one would be a shot across the bow. You look at the policymakers in DC, are they going to vote on something that's going to impact, one country or another? And, the example I gave is, okay, we're about trying to give $60 billion to Ukraine. Could this be the Russians coming back at us saying, okay, you screw with us, we're going to screw with you back? There are consequences to your decisions. Same thing could be for China if they're preparing to say they want to go invade Taiwan or put more pressure on Taiwan, or extend their control in the Straits of Taiwan to beyond the central point. This is their way of saying, don't challenge us on this because we can shut you down. Or the other option would be is if someone like China gave an exploit to Iran and let Iran do it. Like Iran uses the Houthis as a proxy, China could be using Iran as a proxy, where Iran screws with us just because they want to, and gives China plausible deniability to a certain extent. So yeah, there's any number of reasons, but it's in a way it's kind of foolish if you're exposing that you have an exploit, because then they can fix it. But I would think that if I have one exploit, I'd rather have two or three or four. And if I give them one as a shot across the bow, I can keep the other three in reserve to, if the balloon goes up, I can turn things off.
Okay, so for people just tuning in, all evidence points towards a cyber attack from a foreign adversary. Could be China, could be Russia, could be North Korea, could be Iran, or as you mentioned, proxies thereof. Possibly a warning shot to say, don't send more money to Ukraine, or don't send money to Taiwan or support Taiwan. Leave the Houthis alone in Red Sea, and let that economic disruption happen there, whatever the case may be. Mike, have you got some more thoughts on this as far as a cyber attack is concerned?
So, yeah. So, I mean, if they're hitting virtually every cellular provider, virtually every telecommunication provider here on this side, if they're going to be hitting all of these at one time, they've got a lot of people being able to work this at one time. This is not something that you just do with a couple of people. So that kind of makes me think the Chinese. It really does, because they've got a massive quantity of folks to be able to work on this kind of stuff. So, that all comes down to, one, if we look at the norms, we look at, okay, who's got the capability to do this, right? And then who stands to gain from it. And in this case, China, Russia, Iran all fit the bill on this. The Iranians really don't have the offensive capacity to be able to hit something, I think, of this size. But if they were being backed, like you said, if they were being backed like by the Chinese or something, or maybe even one of the Russian cyber gangs got in with them, could be a possibility.
Yeah, I think so. Coming from high tech, another aspect of this as well is a lot of times when an attack is launched, it escalates over a period of time. And it doesn't mean that it goes from, 0 to wide open inside of 5 minutes. It could take 24, 48 hours to get to a full level, of a cyber attack. We know that some systems are coming back up again, but it seems to be a moving target. I was just on the phone with Mike Bellamere, the CEO of Switch It Up, and he had no service in Denver. And by the time he got home, he lives quite a ways away from Denver. He was able to connect over the Starlink satellite system. But I'm not even seeing on the maps that Denver is widely, affected. So what we're seeing for reports, it's not in real time, is what I'm getting at. So what can we do about this as individuals? Like what can the average Joe do when our comms go down? We've talked countless times on this subject, but in this particular instance, Mike, before we went live, you had some comments of how priorities shift when you're in this type of scenario. You want to kick that off?
Right. So as we always say, that your survival priorities are always shifting according to the situation. So what is going to wind up being the top priority in this current situation? Communications rolls all the way up to the top. You lose communications on the PACE plan, of course, primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. So in this case, we're losing our primary, so we need to move to alternates. And in this case, that would wind up being, establishing communications through whatever alternate means that you have, be that ham radios, be that satellite communicators. Take your pick. Whatever you've got as an alternate, that needs to be your primary. And communications automatically flows with power. So anytime you move communications to the top, you have to drag power with it. So power and fuel come together, because you got to be able to maintain power to those alternate communications materials in order to make them work.
Yeah, good point. I just want to point out that Vicky Gagne commented that she has two carriers, but they both use the same tower, and only AT&T went down for her and not the second network. So clearly that would indicate this was not a CME, this was not an EMP, because in either case, the tower would have been completely shut down. We've shown this device before. This is a Garmin InReach Mini. We don't get paid any affiliate commissions by them, but it's a good example of a fairly economical way to be connected to the satellite network. And you can start and stop the plan as you please. I think we pay $12 a month for it, and it tethers to my iPhone, and I can send and receive text. I can download maps, very high detail maps, topographic maps, all those sort of things. I've only been in one location where I didn't have service to this, and it was in a really deep valley in the mountains. But I did eventually get service because those satellites did eventually come over top. So this is a great emergency tool, regardless of whether we're under attack, because it gives us that satellite connectivity. Although if this was a CME, like you mentioned at the beginning, the satellite network may not be functional in that case.
There's a whole bunch of people commenting on here. Folks, go back to the beginning. This is absolutely not solar activity related. 100%. This was a cyber attack. All right. So if you if for everybody that's popping in going, oh, was it a CME or a solar flare? No.
Yeah, it wasn't a CME and it was not an EMP. And not only can you deduce this from some of the information that's coming in, we also have information, firsthand information that this was a cyber attack. We're waiting for more details on that. So we don't want to put it all out there right now because we don't have all the details. But
Right.
some of our Congress critters are already going on the mainstream media saying that this was a, cyber attack as well. Do you spot something interesting in the comment section there, Mike?
Oh, I just keep on popping up and stuff. Let's see. Sarah Brown, you think the attack was from outside the U.S.? Seems to me each of the potential countries now have enough operatives on our soil to do this, as well as the U.S. government. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, Sarah Brown.
Jeff, what are your comments on that?
Well, yeah, they could definitely be doing it from here. I mean, it's easier if you're in the country. You have infinite number of linkages into the country to do that. From you go down to your local library, get online if that's what you're trying to do.
Right.
And yeah, very good point. They could very well be doing it from here. They could be. I think Keith had talked about Chinese nationals coming across the border and then going into libraries and downloading stuff on thumb drives
Right.
to computers. It could be if you're going to attack the system in multiple different locations at the same time, you can easily put that on a computer and basically put it on a timer where it releases in 3 hours, 6 hours, 3 days, 10 days. And you could have it originate from multiple points at the same time, which makes it a lot harder to defend.
Yeah, very much harder to defend. And we know that the Chinese 2-3 weeks ago, Christopher Wray announced that the Chinese had issued a threat that they had access to 24 of our networks. So not just a cell phone network per se. So everything from landlines to logistics networks, cell phone networks, routers, all kinds of stuff. And if they do have access to all that stuff, and this does escalate, this could be the very beginning of cascading network failures, cascading attacks, going to a higher level. Mike, you mentioned radios. We've done some videos lately, excuse me, on handheld radios. Just want to be clear to people, if you do not have the knowledge and do not have repeaters in close proximity, you're not going to get really far with the very best quality walkie-talkies. So even the ones Keith recommends, the Motorola's that were about $5,000 new, you can get them used for under 1,000. You have access to all that stuff, and this does escalate. This could be the very beginning of cascading network failures, cascading attacks. I'm getting some crazy higher level. Mike, you mentioned radios. We've done some videos lately.
I'm on mute.
On handheld radios. I get some really crazy feedback coming here. Anyway, there. Sorry, I don't know where that came from, but there was like a delayed transmission and was
it was us.
Audio.
That's okay. Anyway,
so bottom line is, all I'm trying to communicate is that if you buy walkie-talkies and you don't have repeaters close by, don't expect that you're going to get a tremendous amount of range. Mobile radios, on the other hand, that are mounted in your vehicle or mounted into a power station at home will get you further. But again, you're limited by the height of your antenna and the wattage of your device. So you got to basically, Mike, what's your take on this? Multiple layers?
Of
multiple layers. Yeah.
Oh, so of course, your communications should be under a PACE plan. And PACE, of course, again, stands for primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. Your primary should be your weapon of mass distraction. Your alternate could be that Garmin InReach.
Yeah.
Or it could just be a regular landline or internet or text. And then your contingency could be your InReach satellite text. And then your emergency could be, ham radios.
So I don't know if we can answer this question or not, but I saw a number of press releases by various municipalities regarding their 911 services not being reachable from people calling in from cell phones. But if the internet is still up, E911 services should still be available, electronic 911, which is a data transmission. But we haven't seen any mention of any data networks going down. Obviously, if they were, we wouldn't be having this conversation over Zoom
Right.
and a live broadcast to YouTube. I've
Right.
seen zero reports of any internet issues. Have you guys heard anything otherwise?
No, I've seen nothing.
And the only 911 systems that I've heard of that were dropping off were systems that were getting overwhelmed by calls because everybody was like, the cell network's broken. Well, of course, we're not the people to fix your cell network. We're 911. But what do we know?
Those are the same people who call 911 when the trash doesn't get picked up.
Right. Exactly. I know I'm triggered by that.
So John Grimm has got a great sense of humor in the comment section. We left out another option. Clearly it was aliens.
Could be.
I told you. Legal
or illegal?
You were all like, Mike, you're a racist. I was like, it's those damn Martians.
There you go.
I've been telling you. You're telling me I shouldn't be a racist, but here we are.
That's too funny. All right. Well, let's hope that this gets better and not worse, and that we don't lose more communications. Hopefully people have something in place to communicate with their families. The average American works 15 miles away from home. Do you have a rendezvous point? Do you have a get home bag? Do you have alternate routes to get home? Because the main ones will be plugged up if the shit really does hit the fan. Those sort of things. So I think that people should be taking this, like Jeff said, as a warning, that this is definitely a warning that they can take down our communications as far as telecommunications is concerned. So like some commenters are saying right now, so you take down telecommunications, you take down the grid, you take down the internet, all of those things go away. It's going to leave a lot of people in a state of panic, and also makes us very vulnerable. We can't react to stuff if you're not getting any information. So I think if nothing else, let's hope that this doesn't escalate. But to be prepared for this sort of thing, you got to have all the things that we've already mentioned, multiple forms of communication and all the stuff I just mentioned. What's your rendezvous point in case you can't get home? What happens if it's an EMP eventually, released after a cyber attack and your vehicle doesn't work? How are you going to get home? Can you walk home? Are you sufficiently armed? And even when you do get home, do you have plenty of food on hand? The basics, right? Food, water, ammunition, all those sort of things. Fuel. If you don't have those things already stacked up in your preps, yesterday was the time to start doing that, right? Okay, if we don't have anything else to address, I don't know if there's anything in the comment section you guys want to mention. I noticed that Brian Parrish is saying nobody's freaking out yet in the Charlotte area, at least not normal-minded folks that don't need this BS anyway.
Define normal.
Yeah.
It's a good comment, though. This could potentially be the start of some, fun going forward. I like that.
Mike Gunner.
Yeah.
Can't tell you we don't know we don't know who did the cyber attack, man. Foreign, domestic, imported, take your pick. I don't know.
Foreign, in domestic.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
And for the people, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I think one of the big things for everybody to remember is we don't want you to be fearful. Okay. That's always been our thing here at Survival Dispatch. Don't fear, be educated. You're educated about what's going on. You don't have to be fearful. So that's why we're here.
And also, now is not the time to try and figure out what your plan is with your family, because you won't be able to talk to them to share that plan with your family.
Right.
We know how that works out.
Be prepared for it.
I see we've got some new people in the chat here. So just so we can get them up to speed, this was not an EMP. This was not a CME. It very discreetly affected different things. Number one. Number two, we do have intel stating that this was an adversary of ours launching a cyber attack. And we even have Congress critters confirming the intel that we've received. We only have a little bit of intel, though. We know it's a foreign actor. We just don't know which one it is and to what extent it is. But you can rule out anything solar flares, CMEs, EMPs, all of that stuff. did not cause this. And of course, we still have ongoing disruption right now. Hopefully it gets better, not worse. But many times during cyber attacks, it starts slow. And as they bring more of their team online and attack more infrastructure, it only gets worse, not better. So now's the time, like Jeff said, I would reach out to your family right now if you're at work and make sure that you have some plan for this afternoon or the balance of today until you get home with them, if you don't already have a plan in place. And so Larry Murray saying on here, same thing, prepping for a bigger attack. And he feels that this was just a test to see how we react and to catch us off guard, possibly.
Well, and we discussed that earlier, that this is an awful big event for a test. I'm going to say this, you really don't, unzip your fly and drop everything out on the table for everybody to see if it's just a test.
Yeah, this was a coast to coast, Mexican border to Canadian border attack. It hit pretty much everything. So that's not something you play with.
Just a guy with a unibrow is asking, could it be a good old DDoS, so distributed denial of service attack? This doesn't look like a DDoS because we have points in the network where one carrier is down and another carrier is up and they're using shared infrastructure.
Yeah.
So if it was a DDoS, a distributed denial of attack, then neither party would have access to that infrastructure. For those people who aren't techies, what that basically means is you overwhelm a network with so much data and information that it gets so congested it essentially fails. So this doesn't look like a DDoS. This looks more so like what Christopher Wray warned us of, foreign hackers having access to our critical systems and shutting them down. So, and it's really not that hard, especially for cell phone stuff. Just start knocking out routers.
Yeah.
But they shut them down for a comparatively short period of time because everything's coming back online now. So it was only off for a couple of hours. That says to me, just like Jeff said, that says warning.
Right.
Yeah, this is somebody saying, if we can do it to AT&T's network or whoever's network, what's to say we can't do it to your SCADA systems, to your power distribution systems? You look at gas lines, look at pipelines, we can close those down. Well, remember that one time when they hit Colonial, the ransomware, man, that screwed everything up for a while. Now, if they try and did that across the country to multiple pipelines, we'd be hosed.
Yep.
CUCV farmers mentioning that Alaska and Hawaii were affected as well. So another indicator that this is a pretty broad attack on networks, cell phone networks. What Joe Putin is asking what the satellite gizmo was. This is the Garmin InReach Mini 2. I think they're $399 on Garmin, about $12 a month. And you can tether it to your phone, download maps, send and receive text messages. It's a great device when you're off the grid. There's also an SOS button on the side that's protected by this little cover. And if you press that, it will connect you to Garmin's monitoring center that runs 24/7, 365. I think if you go to their website, it says that there have been something around 10,000 people saved. So that's not somebody who's lost. This is situations where somebody's life has been in peril. So it's pretty impressive. You can get the same service on larger devices from them as well. Larry Murray's saying that this if it was a test, it was a pretty small test because it's not super widespread, as you noted, Mike. It is and it isn't, right? It's spotty. So it's covering a wide geography, but very specific spotty sections. And the thin dime says it was a squirrel attack. And that's legitimate. We've pulled it up. We've seen squirrel attacks on the grid. And we now know that we also have rogue acorns in play. So
I'm telling you, I've been telling you all this time.
Toronto was taken down by a raccoon.
You don't mess with squirrels, man. You don't mess with squirrels.
Miko Wolf is mentioning the importance of ham radios, GMRS radios, satellite phones, especially being able to connect to repeaters. So if you go to repeaterbook.com, and I know there's other websites, you can punch in your address and see what repeaters may be in your area. We've got a bunch of GMRS radios that we've been testing. There is not a GMRS repeater within 25 miles of where I am in Central Florida. So too far away to connect with a HT. I can connect to them with a mobile radio. Perry McPherson likes the Acorns weapons of mass destruction.
Telling you.
Somebody commented earlier as well.
They're going to get fission on those things.
Right. Somebody mentioned earlier that they feel that this was, in addition to be a warning, to gauge what our response would be. And it's funny, but not funny that people in the comment section, as well as the three of us, are joking about this. But I mean, we've been predicting for a while that 2024 has the potential to be upside down. And this could very well be the beginning of it, especially attacks on our critical infrastructure.
For listen to Behemoth, I'm not too familiar with this stuff. Is Starlink susceptible to cyber attack? Well, it is susceptible to cyber attack, just not very, very susceptible. It's, I mean, it's out there. You can attack the ground nodes, but everything up in space you can't really touch. So I would say it's a whole lot more hardened than regular telecommunications are.
If you have a bidirectional network connection from here to a satellite, you can absolutely disable features on that satellite. Be no different than mission control having them. There's a question from somebody here asking, has the info pointing towards a targeted attack been vetted? It has been. It's from a reliable source, but again, we don't have all the information.
We want two sources that
Correct.
tell us that.
Yeah. So we have one source that has verified that, but has not been able to give out more information. And I honestly, when we go through deducing stuff here, process of elimination, this is definitely a network attack, which means it's most likely a foreign nation, but we don't have enough information. And the thing that makes me kind of cautious on this is when senators go in front of the mainstream media and say, this is a cyber attack, I immediately think, really? You know, process of deduction points towards that. But immediately when I hear somebody like Marco Rubio saying it's definitely a cyber attack, it makes me question it. Is it a false flag network attack? You know, that could be happening as well. We don't know. We know it's a cyber attack. That's all we know.
Yeah.
All right. I know nothing else new.
No.
I'm just looking through the last of the comments to see if there's anything that we should address.
Puerto Rico having problems too.
Robert Von Darth brought out a good point as well, or brought up a good point, I should say, that there was a large Microsoft update pushed out last night. So for those who don't know my background, I was a Unix and Linux evangelist with Sun Microsystems for many years. And I had a group of Microsofties who traveled around when I was delivering speeches to heckle me. But I was a systems and network admin for Solaris Unix and Red Hat Linux. So usually the guys who followed me around didn't have the technical chops that I did. So it was kind of fun to engage them. But when you ask somebody like me, Microsoft, it's garbage spaghetti code. It's shitty software. Could absolutely cause problems, but not of this magnitude because of all the telcos. They're using Unix products. They're not using Microsoft products to run their networks. I can assure you of that. Terry Thomas, good point. AT&T has not released any statements yet.
Yeah, they're probably in full on panic mode right now.
Damage control.
So we have more new, people joining. Deborah Olson is talking X-Flare. Listen, this was not a CME, an X-Flare, or an EMP. If any of those things had happened, we would have all the networks would be down. It doesn't, a CME and an X-Flare does not discriminate between one and the other. We know specifically that there's shared infrastructure between carriers. One carrier's down, the other carrier's not down. That cannot happen from any type of solar activity. So we can 100% say not a CME. We can 100% say not an EMP, not to mention the fact that we do have a source that's told us this is absolutely 100% a cyber attack. What we don't know, was it a foreign actor? Is it a false flag? Or any of those things? And we're waiting for more information on that.
And besides, even more importantly, 76 red pills can't play Candy Crush. How
Oh, man.
dare you all?
Well, there goes my week. There goes my
Yep.
afternoon activity.
Gregory Westmoreland, good point. You know, he says Chinese DDoS, distributed denial service, against AT&T's network, or Homeland Security conducting a test. This could be a false flag. We don't have our tinfoil hats on today, so you know we can't 100% say for sure. Although I do have one over here, just for jokes. I do have one, but it's for jokes when I wear it.
But you're giving them credit for being able to pull it off. You know,
Right.
Number one, first, anything the government does, it does wrong. So,
yeah, Gregory made another comment with regards to ham radio, which we've discussed. Absolutely. You know, if you haven't already invested in this stuff, and God forbid that this doesn't escalate any further today, you got to get your stuff in order again. So we'll say it one more time before we wrap up this stream. Make sure you have alternate comms. You can get things like Garmin InReach Minis. We're not affiliated with them. $12 a month. Send and receive text messages over the satellite network. Send out an SOS signal. Download maps. Those sort of things. You can get radios. Beware that if you get walkie-talkies and you're not in, you know, relatively close proximity to repeaters, you're not going to get a long distance out of these unless you're in the desert and you have, you know, unlimited line of sight.
And everybody else is going to be listening to what you're saying.
Correct. Yeah. So we have a conversation going with Kemp Wireless right now, by the way, where they refurbish the Motorola radios used by law enforcement. And hopefully we can strike a deal with them because they do come with encryption on them. Obviously the NSA and those sorts of, you know, bodies can break that. But Mike's right. If you have regular ham radio, GMRS radio, other people can listen in on what you're saying, but you still have to have some way to stay in touch with your family, right? So satellite comms, radios, backup power to look after them, and then all the regular basic stuff: food, water, meds, fuel, and ammo. Is there anything else in the comment section, Mike, that we need to address, or
over? Not that I'm seeing. It's I'll just go back to, you know, at this point, communications becomes your top priority, immediately followed by power, because you've got to, if you're going to have communications, you have to have power with it.
Yeah. Cheryl Powell says that she would bet Joe Biden knows something about it. Well, I agree with the joke, but he doesn't have the mental capacity to grasp any of this.
Yeah, I was going to say he doesn't even know who he is most of the time. So, you know, yeah.
Tack to Squirrel is going to invest in the tinfoil market because
that's solid financial advice right there.
That is true.
Invest in tinfoil. The hatting market is about to boom.
Yeah,
that's solid financial.
Raver trip. Joe Biden doesn't know what day it is, let alone what is going on in the world. Russell Diaz, we can't say it's our government anymore because we no longer have a government. Touche. I think that's about it. Well, they're asking what the cheapest option is for communications. Cheapest option for communications would be ham radios, but there is a learning curve, and you need to learn what channels, how to get on different channels, program your radio, and connect to other people, especially family members, and accept the fact that, again, walkie-talkies are not going to have a huge range unless you're in the desert, have a great line of sight, or
how far away are the people that you got to talk to?
That's right.
Yeah.
Dark Star 44, PACE. I'll go over it again. It's an acronym: primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. That is the 4 levels of a contingency plan: primary, alternate, contingency, emergency.
Yeah.
So last time you get it, Dark Star.
Great Lakes Reliance, 20 miles, simplex 50 watts. So that means not going through a repeater. That's pretty decent. We're fixing to do some tests here with some 50-watt GMRS base stations. We'll have a video up on that in a couple of weeks, but we're anticipating similar coverage. The anti-feminist woman, is it worth it to get your technician ham radio license? Under emergency circumstances, you do not need a license. So whether you get the license or not, what's more important is that you have a plan in place. You know how to use your radios, and everybody in your group knows how to use radios. And you have a plan. Mike's covered this before, where at the top of the hour, you go to a specific channel, and, for several minutes, you wait for any communications. If you do have communications and you're worried over security, maybe at 15 past the hour, you go down a couple channels. 30 minutes after the hour, go down a couple more channels. It's kind of like poor man's very slow frequency hopping.
Works.
Yeah.
Vivian P, great channel. You guys are great. Thank you. Thank you, Vivian. We really appreciate your kind words. Yeah, Gregory Westmoreland, he's been adding a lot of great information. He's right. You do not need a test to get your GMRS license. This is a GMRS radio. We like GMRS radios a lot because the new walkie-talkies have really decent power. I've tested this one at 6 watts, by the way. This is a Ocean, spelt Watson, but good advice, Gregory. It's just $35, 10-year license, extends all the way to your first cousin, so it covers everybody in your family, unlike the ham radio technician's license. Caveat being is that the mobile and the base station GMRS radios are limited to 50 watts. The ham radios will go up to 1,500 watts. So you can communicate around the world on a ham radio. You're not going to do that on a GMRS radio, but GMRS radio is easy to operate. Don't have to worry about programming them, and easy to get your family up to speed on them and how to use them. Stick it in a Faraday bag, stick it in your get home bag in your vehicle, have a plan, have a rendezvous point, have a comms plan. All those things should be coming into focus here. Like I say, God forbid that this episode escalates even higher, and hopefully it provides the motivation for people to get their preps in order sooner rather than later.
And watch out for squirrels.
Yeah, well, let's just clarify this. Florida squirrels. The rest of the nation's completely normal. That's just a Florida man thing.
I disagree.
I'm telling you.
They're all dangerous. Look at Duggar up here. He says he's made more IT money due to attack squirrels. These are people.
Those are the attack squirrels. That's a different kettle of fish. But I will tell you, this Saturday in St. Augustine, Florida, is the first annual Florida Man Games, where contestants will break into a house, run away from the cops, jump 3 fences, wrestle an alligator, and then do the tuck and roll acorn drill.
Yep. I'll start shooting acorns at people. That's it. I'm going
Silence.
all the way to the escalation matrix.
Silenced acorns.
Ooh.
Fully suppressed acorns.
You have to have a tax stamp for that, though. Come on now.
Well, yeah.
I was going to say,
I mean,
the squirrel has to have a tax stamp.
There you go. Gregory Westmoreland adding more truth bombs and adding great information in here with regards to ham radios, GMRS radios have to be line of sight to hit a repeater. And if you want to talk further, then you've got to, step it up a notch. Keeping in mind, like, from the antenna is the most important thing, but you're looking at walkie-talkies 5-6 watts versus a mobile radio, which is something you'd mount in your truck at 50 watts. And that's GMRS. And if you go ham, then you're going to get into even higher wattages, but it's not in this form factor, essentially.
No.
All right. I think that's it. Jacob, yes, it will be listed as an episode. Thank you for asking, and thank you for following, and thank you for logging on. Okay. Stay tuned, folks, as we get more information. Highly likely that we will have another live episode of Survival Dispatch News coming at you in the next 24 hours, if the network stays up and if there's some information to share.
Yes, the middle word in life, if.
Yes. All right.
All right.
Over and out. 10-4.
Ciao.
Stay frosty.